Hello, Helen. Hello, I'm so glad to be here. Someone I consider a mentor, someone I consider as a professional connection who has so much wisdom and knowledge. So thank you for being on this conversation.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you.
We are at the Middle East School Leadership Conference, and the theme today is building a leadership legacy and looking at leading forward. Now, as coaches, and as I say, consider you as an esteemed colleague in the field of coaching, you've worked with a lot of leaders. And sometimes when we do this work, there are confidential things shared with us. There's a lot of sensitivity required to handle some of the issues that we're faced with when we speak with leaders, executive leaders, senior leaders, middle leaders, all leaders. And to be fair, any human that we work with. So given the theme, how do you feel the role of coaching supports building a leadership legacy?
That's such a good question. And it's a complex question, but it's also a very simple question as well. Because I think that anybody who's involved in having a coach will recognize the process that you go through, which is so much more about yourself first, and then recognizing with humility, the power that you have in order to be able to take people forward or around you. So it starts with that, who am I? And then what could I do? And what do people around me need? And then how am I going to do it? How am I going to make that happen? And the coach is almost like a bystander in that. For the coach is there saying, right, okay, I'll ask you those questions. You said that. Let's take that a bit further, shall we? Let's see what that looks like.
So it's that positive curiosity, but also care underpinning the curiosity to enable the coachee into discovery.
And I would say as a coach that one of the things I feel very strongly about is that if I've taken somebody on to be able to be coached, then I'm really invested in that, because there's something that drives us around the legacy. It's not my legacy. It's not their legacy. It's our collective legacy. And particularly in school leaders, if all of us are helping school leaders be in the right place at the right time, doing what's amazing to work with their colleagues or with children, everyone benefits. Parents benefit.
Cascading, domino, snowball, all of the effects of that.
And children above all benefit, and children are the future of the world. So it's an investment in the world. That's the legacy. And it's not a single legacy, it's a collective legacy. I love that.
I love that term, collective legacy. Because oftentimes when we talk about legacy, sometimes it feels like we're talking about being old and grey and looking back on a timeline where we're at the end, and it doesn't have to be. It can be quite dynamic, and it can continue on through you, me, and then it cascades on rather than it being linear from point to point.
So a living legacy. That's what you've got. A living legacy, a living collective legacy. There we go. You sorted it.
And what would you say are some of the themes of challenge that stand in the way, indeed, inhibit, form barriers to leaders seeing the benefit in coaching?
So what are the barriers that stop people taking up coaching in the first place?
Or considering it?
There are a number, actually. One of them is that people think, do I need coaching? Because we don't know what we don't know. That's the thing. It's like, if you don't know what you don't know, then why would you take it on? So that's why
it often Joe Harry window.
Right? Totally. Absolutely. And it sometimes takes other people to go, actually, do you know what? This would be really helpful. So I think that's one. Then the other one is the kind of bit of the self-belief things, like, why me? How could I? Oh, I should deeply invest in me rather than And also thinking, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. So another is time. People think it's going to take a lot of time. It doesn't take time.
Or they think it's going to be like some sort of therapy, personality assassination.
It's the furthest from the truth. It's going to be empowering. It's going to be challenging. Good coaching is challenging. But when we're talking with coaching, with one-on-one executive coaching, leadership coaching, you're talking about an hour every month or 6 weeks. It's a small amount of time. And in that hour, there'll be something that happens that enables you to take forward something into the rest of your time. So yes, you're doing work in between sessions, but you're not writing long essays or anything like that. But I think there's also something else that people think, this is expensive, and it's not expensive. Coaching is not expensive. When you consider the value that you get from coaching, consider how much, when people go off to residential conferences and different places, how much people spend on that. It is not expensive. And people think, oh, maybe it comes back to the self-belief, the value, or maybe I shouldn't be invested in. Maybe we need more pencils in year 3 or something. It's like, if as a leader, you are not being invested in, first of all, how are you going to do your job as well as you possibly could do it? And secondly, you're not being a very good role model, actually, because we say to children all the time, you need to invest in yourself, you need to believe. Look at all this we're giving you as children in order to grow and become. And if we then as adults go, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's stagnation, isn't it? Stagnation.
Like, what are we doing? Let's be good role models and invest in ourselves for that. And the thing is, it works.
Have you ever, and I'm saying this almost loaded question, I know what the answer is, but I think it's a brilliant question, provocation. Have you ever met some leaders who consider themselves uncoachable?
Leader.
And you know,
yes, that's right. You heard, there are a number of elements to that. I've met leaders who have had to put on a mask for so long that they think they can't do any better and it's all going really well and etc. Usually, those leaders, there are multiple layers underneath.
That's they're the onions.
Yes.
They're the onions.
Yes, that's right. I think there are sometimes that there are people, I think there are other things that they need to do more than coaching. I think that, but most people, the question that they have is it okay for them to be coached? What is coaching? Will you tell me what to do? Actually, you've got the answers. Oh, no, I don't have the answers. Yes, you do have the answers. The skill of the coach, and that's why being experienced coaches, the skill of the coach is to be able to find the right question to draw out something and bring it out so that people see it in a way that they wouldn't otherwise see. And then they'll do something with it. So I know I'm quite a challenging coach, but I'm a very pragmatic coach as well. So I want to make sure that you have action points to take away. They're not going to be superficial. They're going to be things that make a difference. So sometimes you ask us, is anybody ever uncoachable? The answer is no, but people do need to enter into it.
As you were speaking, the analogy of you have a challenge, a hurdle, a summit of some kind, not Everest, not the Everest.
Yes, that's right.
Let's say we're before Everest Base Camp.
Right.
We're at the first summit.
Cold bits, challenging,
we're at
but
the first summit. We're not quite tackling Everest.
Right,
We're getting to the summit. We could say, look, there is this way.
Yes.
And there's also this way. It's shorter, but it's more challenging.
Yes.
And there's this way, which will take more time, but you'll have a scenic view.
Yeah.
Now, it's up to you which path you choose to take.
That's right.
And it's up to you what you want to think about. You're scaling that summit.
Yes.
And I think that painting that scenery, that scene, and providing signposting, not even the map, just the signposting, is what the best coaches do.
And it may be that as a result of the work that you've done with the coach who's helped you see those, that you decide actually you don't want to scale Everest, you want to go for K2 instead.
Exactly.
You know, so it's about opening our range of possibilities.
Yes.
And the question is, why do you want to do that? Maybe you should do that, or should do that, or that. And it's finding what those are, finding out what those are.
And in terms of the leaders who you've seen in your career who've had the biggest impact, who left a legacy that is noteworthy.
Yeah.
Have they had coaches? And if they have had coaches, how have they interacted with them?
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that entirely because you don't always know if people have had coaches or not. But I certainly know that the best leaders have got a strong sense of self and they have not done it by themselves. They absolutely haven't done it by themselves. They have had people around them who have thought about things, who have helped, when I say guide them, they've helped them guide themselves. And they have a deep sense of humility, openness to learning, wisdom that comes as a result of that. And that doesn't happen just by people saying, I'm going to follow my own path and do it my own way. Absolutely not. So yes, I would say that they have. Yeah, maybe slightly less conventional ways than we describe now, because now people can have access to a coach, whereas 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that wasn't an option. People had to find their own way. But isn't it marvelous that we're able to speak so much more about it now than we could before? It's great. It's useful.
Another angle, imposter phenomenon. I don't call it
Yes.
syndrome anymore because I don't want to put a negative spin. Imposter phenomenon.
Yeah.
How does it feature on the way to creating a legacy?
Yes.
And what can we do when we get it?
So our development as individuals, from a coach seeing the development, another leader, development is not linear. And it's not, we don't wake up and get outraged, we're a baby and go, what I'm going to do is this, we're going to head there. It's shaped by all sorts of things. It's shaped by challenge. It's shaped by things that might appear not to go right, but actually are often the best things that could have happened. And it's shaped by voices from previous generations. So the things that we were told as children and the well-meaning things that we were told, which probably aren't as helpful as they could have been. So there's all of that that's going on. That often leads us to a position where we think, why am I here doing this? Why am I here? Now, everything that you've done has taken you to where you are. So it's a good thing, actually. And even that questioning of who we are. So we talk about imposter syndrome and imposter phenomenon. And I think there's something about riding the crest of that wave. It's like being conscious of the unknown ahead of you. So there should be an element to, oh my, what is it? Recognizing what's brought us to where we are and then seeing how we're going to use that, but also say thank you to all the things that have happened in the past. Now, I love seeing people on that journey. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. We do know, however, that we can shape it and we can be intentional about it and we can draw on everything that's there. All our knowledge of ourselves and our embracing of our inner imposter, what do we call it, is part of that.
You know what I'm hearing from you? And that's
that's a lovely coaching.
What I'm hearing is this concept that if we are in a plane, we're gonna do a jump. We're gonna parachute out of the plane. The imposter phenomenon feeling is almost the parachute. Yes. So we feel fear, we feel anxiety, but without it, perhaps we wouldn't.
Yes.
Can't jump.
That's a lovely image. Yes. And you've got instructors around you.
Instructors around you. Yes.
It's
exhilarating.
That's right.
Sometimes it's daunting. You might actually chicken out.
Yes.
And you can always go again.
Yes.
So thinking of it more as a garment rather than as a persona.
Yes.
Is actually helpful.
Yes, and I think that is a tool and a toolbox. There's something there. I like that idea of the parachute. Oh, we could take this further. Love metaphors. Yes.
Yeah. So my brain always, when I'm thinking of things, and I'm sure this happens with you too.
Yes.
I've spoken.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
To manifest or to visualize a hurdle or a barrier. Earlier when I was speaking to Priya Mitchell, we were talking about relationships being critical for safe and caring cultures. And on the way as we were walking here, we were talking about relationships for leaders and legacy.
Yes.
But we were talking about the fact that when people say to me relationship, I actually imagine a ship being constructed every time we meet. So we start with a plank of wood and then slowly but surely, we create this majestic image. So
it's always there. The relationship, once formed, is always there and is built upon.
And the dimensions of it from different ways. But that also rings true of how we conceptualize ourselves and our leadership. So if you visualize your leadership, if you visualize it as an object or a place, we often do activities like that. What is your leadership? If you could see it, if you could analyze it, how would it feel to walk through it? And how is it to If you were there, what would the sound be?
Yes.
What would the pictures be? And it seems quite abstract to some people,
Yes.
but in doing so, you are exploring your,
Yes.
and also growing your brain. It's
That's
neuroplastic, the activity.
yeah.
And people say to me, so, you do leadership and do you just talk to people? And, it's well-meaning. I hope it's well-meaning. But this idea that you can turn a construct, something quite abstract, something that someone can carry within them.
Yes.
And actually move with it.
Yes.
In a way that helps them to feel more secure within themselves.
Yes.
That is the leadership of the self. So coaching, when we talk about that, or when we are trying to create coaches, or have a coaching spirit within our school.
Yes.
It starts with knowing oneself.
Absolutely. Totally. And that goes back to the very first point I made. When you the very first question you asked, it's exactly that.
Yeah.
It starts with knowing yourself. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to know yourself entirely in order to be able to be a great leader, be a good coach. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that you need to be on a quest towards that. And that I think every day we should know ourselves that little bit better. We have actively reflected on that. We don't have to spend hours doing
When
that.
do you think the best time to reflect on yourself is? Because they're busy leaders, right? Busy people. I know where we're going to go with the answer to this, but if someone was like, I don't have time to reflect, what would your advice be to them on when they might start to? What's the stepping stones here?
So, two things there. One is we always have time. We always have time. There are things that once we become a habit, that we will do them. People do not forget to clean their teeth in the morning. They just do it. And yet that takes a little time, doesn't it? But we don't forget to do that because we know it's important to be brought up to do it. We do it, etc.
It might actually be because there's a cause and effect to that. Like, so if I don't brush my teeth won't look the same. And if I don't brush my teeth, I might have a bad impression. I might give out people might smell my smelly good. So I'm going to be forced to do it for that reason.
Yes, but you didn't know that until you were told that. And you actually practiced it. And then you realized at some point in your life when you didn't do that, so you learned that.
Yeah, so you never don't have time to brush it.
Exactly. So there is always time. There is always time. There's always time to breathe. There is always time to listen to something. There's always time to notice. And it can take a few seconds to do that. The second point I want to make, though, is that if you haven't been doing it, then you absolutely need to practice. And you need to schedule it. And you need to stack that habit onto another habit. And so there's a trigger for you to do it. Because otherwise, it's no good saying, yes, I want to do that. I'll do that at some point. Because you forget. Because you haven't built it in. We're saying that maybe people could use their teeth brushing moment to be able to reflect on self.
It's supposed to be 2 minutes.
There you go.
You can start with 2 minutes.
There we go.
Twice a day as well.
Sorted.
That's 4 minutes.
Sorted. Exactly.
Or the shower. A lot of people say that's what we're doing. And in coaching, we often signpost when you're brushing your teeth and when you're having a shower. Or someone cancels a meeting.
Yes.
And then there's a dead time between the next one.
It's a gift of time.
Yeah, it's a gift of time. It's the opportunity to come out of the rigmarole of the next, and having a pause. The power of the pause. When we talk about that, we talk about strategically composing ourselves. Not composing ourselves because there's a stress out. But actually taking the time to
be intentional about it.
And then, I always pick this up when I'm watching you. Does that mean I have to become a yogi? Does that mean I have to start doing all of these breathing exercises and all of that? But it goes in different directions. It doesn't have to be so heavy.
Not at all, because it's not one thing or the other. We do live in a world which is quite polarized. So it's either I'm not going to think about myself at all, or I'm going to spend the next 6 years and the foothills of war reflecting. So it's not that. That's right, exactly. It's those little things that are balanced with other things. You're making a choice. And it's not like you're having to fit absolutely everything in. It's a question. There's something that I know I would like to do, that I'm going to be able to do it. There's something that I really feel compelled to do because I can see how it's developing me. I'm absolutely going to do that. You can do that. It is there. You can do that. A coach helps remind you of that and make sure that you're on track as far as that's concerned, holds you to account. You will do it You will do it because you believe that it's really important to do.
It's really interesting. On the point of changing, just making a small shift, making a tiny shift. I've actually this week had a alarm at, this is a true story, 7 a.m.
Yes.
and 9 p.m. to remind me to just breathe. And I know that's really weird. Maybe it sounds odd. But when it pops up, it actually really surprises me.
Yes. Because you've forgotten.
Because I've forgotten that I can take a really deep breath and just calm myself down.
So tell me, what's the impact of you doing that for you? What's the experience you've had?
So I've reset myself to be intentional about taking a breath. Because I'm a go person, I'm doing lots of things, and sometimes I just don't think consciously about it. And by having that trigger, the reminder, the nudge, really, the nudge to just take a really deep breath, just 2 or 3 of them. And I think the power of just one, one leads to 2, 2 leads to 4. And then if I'm in a calmer state, taking a deep breath, my whole evening looks different. Or the rest of the night looks different. And I've set it for 7 because I'm normally on the way or getting up or on the way. And my head's like I'm either frantic. So it's just, just recenters. And that just a few breaths. Because I think I read somewhere that if you calm your pulse at least twice a day, your general well-being is impacted. And it's been the 9th day of it. And I think I am a little bit more centered. And it's just like 4 deep breaths.
So what I'm hearing from you, what I'm guessing at, you've actually given the answer in there, is that you didn't wake up one morning and think, oh, right, let me just do a few deep breaths. You actually you talked about feeling centered, so a goal to feel centered. You talked about your general well-being. I think that would be a goal that you had about your general well-being. And you've identified, partly through your reading, partly through listening to other people, you've identified that this is the way in which you're going to try and you're going to experiment doing that.
Not only that, actually that's strength of mine. So I play to my strengths, scheduling, and saying structure. So I thought, what can I do that I'm already doing really well? That enables me to do this thing, but at the same time, I don't. Maybe I'm not naturally leaning to it because I'm wanting to fill my day with as much as possible. So I use my own rest to can really, like my own support me. So I think if you're identifying your strengths well, you can use your strengths for your goals and try and line them up. Oneself backs that.
And you have those goals. You've created those goals. And coaching, that process that you've gone through using your own skills as a coach with you, that's led you to go, yes, I've got these goals. I'm going to do something about it.
And I think it's a little bit of practice what you preach as well. Because I'm always telling people, time block your for this and that. And with me, when you experience it and you tell people of your own experience, you're speaking from a source. You're the source. You're giving them a case study, which is live. You say, I did it, and this is how I felt. Why don't you try it? Just a few days. And sometimes that's what makes the ball bearing. Just take over. And I would say that when you've done it and you've convinced yourself, you're then a lot more effective as a coach with others.
Yes, I think that's true. I think that's very true. And that applies not necessarily just to the breathing and well-being, though that's very important for everybody, but it's about people's career trajectories. And when you've experienced things, and sometimes vicariously experienced things to other people, you know that this is possible. And even just having that confidence as a coach, you don't have to tell people what to do. You know it. And then you know which questions to ask in order to get people to go, oh, yeah, I think I'll do that. Absolutely.
And I found in my, when I coached heads and leaders, when they start having a series of coaching sessions, they start preempting the fact that you're eliciting from, I know why you're asking me this.
Yes. Even I know the question you're going to ask about. Brilliant.
So it's great because those thinking routines, those moments of reflection if they're preempting them, it's when the toothbrushing becomes automatic. If they're adopting and absorbing the experience. And I think that's another reason why coaching is so critical, because when you've experienced it as someone who's a coachee, when you're then the coach, it's a two-way synergy that comes up from it. Lastly, what would be your key advice to someone who's just hanging on? They can't see their legacy right now. They can't see the wood from the trees. They're just hanging on day to day, meeting to meeting, email to email, moment to moment. What would be your advice to them?
You mean apart from get a coach? Because that is essential. I would say,
and apart from go for a walk.
Yes.
Apart from sleep more.
Yes.
Or eat well. Apart from that
is break for a second. And you need to long, but break, think, and ask the question, because you need to think differently. You need to be in a position where you're going to say, I'm going to do this differently. So you need to therefore to physically relocate to another place, another part of the school, another part of a park, rather than stay at home or whatever it is. Relocate yourself physically for a bit and ask the question and pause and listen. Just listen. And then internally and listen, and you won't have the answers all there. But that's where if you start with that, it's like those few seconds of breathing, and it's going to be something it will come to you who it is who's going to help you. If this is happening, chances are there are lots of things going on. You could do what you deserve somebody to help walk alongside you. So that means very much what I say. Physically put yourself somewhere, mentally put yourself somewhere, emotionally, and just ask the question, what am I doing? Where am I going? How am I going to do it? And
who do I trust? Or who could be, who could I lean on? Because leaders often are the ones people lean on. And we need that network around those two. On that note, we always go deep and deep dive, even though they've stopped them now. We love a good deep dive into coaching and theory and practice and people. And I think genuinely we both love people. And I think coaching comes from that love of humanity.
And that's legacy, isn't it? That's who we are.
Thank you so much.
My great pleasure.
Thank you.